You just got promoted. Better title, better salary. Everyone congratulates you. But instead of celebrating, you feel something else. A quiet voice in the back of your head saying, they made a mistake. They're going to figure it out soon. And when they do, everything falls apart. If you've ever felt this way, you're not broken, you're not weak, and you're definitely not alone. You're experiencing something that affects more than half the population on Earth. It has a name. It's been studied for almost 50 years. And the strangest part? The more successful you become, the worse it gets. In 1978, two psychologists were studying high-achieving women, professors, doctors, executives, women who had every reason to feel confident. But when they interviewed them, they found something bizarre. These women genuinely believed their success was a fluke. Not skill, not intelligence, not years of hard work, just luck, or good timing, or someone else making a mistake in their favor. They called it the imposter phenomenon. Since then, researchers have expanded the study far beyond that original group. A major analysis involving more than 11,000 people found that 62% experience imposter syndrome at some point in their lives. Among high-achieving professionals specifically, 75% report feeling like a fraud. 3 out of 4 successful people secretly believe they don't deserve to be where they are. You'd expect that the more you learn, the more confident you become. That makes logical sense. But your brain does the exact opposite. There's a well-known cognitive bias called the Dunning-Kruger effect. When someone knows almost nothing about a subject, they tend to dramatically overestimate their ability. They don't know enough to realize how much they don't know. A person who's read one article about investing thinks they can beat the stock market. Someone who's watched 3 cooking videos thinks they're ready to run a restaurant. But as a person actually learns more, something counterintuitive happens. Their confidence doesn't rise, it drops. Sometimes it crashes completely, because now they can see how vast the field really is. Now they understand just how much they're still missing. This is exactly where imposter syndrome lives, right at the point where you know enough to see how much you don't know. The beginner feels like a genius. The actual expert feels like a fraud. Your brain is essentially punishing you for getting smarter. But why would evolution build something so counterproductive? Why would your brain create a system that makes you doubt yourself precisely when you should feel most confident? The answer goes back hundreds of thousands of years. For most of human history, survival depended entirely on your social group. If your tribe rejected you, you didn't just feel bad about it, you died. You couldn't hunt alone, you couldn't defend yourself against predators alone, you couldn't survive a single winter without the group. So your brain developed an internal monitoring system, a constant background process scanning for one signal. Do I still belong here? Am I still valuable enough to keep around? This system kept you humble, kept you contributing, kept you proving your worth every single day. Because the moment you appeared useless or arrogant, the group might decide you were more trouble than you were worth. That ancient system is still running inside your skull right now. Every time you get a promotion, every time you join a new group of higher-achieving people, your brain runs the scan. New environment, higher expectations, higher stakes. Do I belong here? And because the social threat feels enormous, your amygdala activates. Your body floods with stress hormones. You feel genuine fear. Not because you're incompetent, because a part of your brain genuinely believes your survival depends on not being exposed. Researchers have identified 5 distinct patterns of imposter behavior. Understanding which one affects you is the first step to recognizing what your brain is actually doing. The first is the perfectionist. This person sets impossibly high standards and then feels like a failure when they don't reach every single one. 98% isn't a great score. It's evidence that they missed 2%. The gap between their standard and their result becomes proof of inadequacy. The second is the expert. This person needs to know absolutely everything before they'll consider themselves competent. They won't apply for a position unless they match 100% of the qualifications. They won't speak in a meeting unless they've researched every possible angle. A single gap in their knowledge feels like total ignorance. The third is the natural genius. This person measures competence by speed and ease. If something requires effort, if they have to struggle or practice, they interpret that as proof they're not naturally talented. Real talent, they believe, should never require hard work. The fourth is the soloist. This person believes that needing help is the same as admitting defeat. If they can't accomplish something entirely on their own, the achievement doesn't really count. Every collaboration feels like cheating. The fifth is the superhero. This person works harder than everyone around them, not because they want to excel, because they believe they need to work twice as hard just to be considered average. They overcompensate constantly, terrified that if they slow down for even a moment, everyone will finally see how ordinary they really are. These aren't personality types you're born with. They're survival strategies. Each one is your brain's unique way of managing the fear that you'll be discovered as someone who doesn't belong. And the psychological cost of running this program nonstop is devastating. Research shows that people experiencing imposter syndrome are 3.5 times more likely to develop depression, nearly 3 times more likely to develop clinical anxiety. The constant mental energy spent questioning yourself, monitoring yourself, preparing for the moment someone exposes you, it drains the exact cognitive resources you need for actual performance. And there's a cruel cycle hidden inside this. Imposter syndrome creates anxiety. Anxiety impairs your concentration and decision-making. Impaired performance then confirms the original belief that you're not good enough, and the cycle repeats. Your brain literally creates the failure it was afraid of. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Some researchers now argue that a moderate amount of imposter syndrome might actually be an advantage. Not the crippling kind, not the kind that leads to depression, but the mild, persistent awareness that you might not know everything. Think about it this way. The person who never doubts themselves stops learning. They become rigid, overconfident, blind to their own mistakes. They stop listening. They stop improving. But the person who carries a small seed of doubt, they keep studying. They prepare more carefully. They listen more closely. They ask better questions. They stay hungry. The problem isn't the doubt itself. The problem is when that doubt crosses a line. When it goes from a whisper that keeps you sharp to a scream that keeps you frozen. When you can't enjoy a single success because you're already bracing for the moment everything falls apart. The difference between healthy self-awareness and a destructive spiral comes down to one thing: whether you believe the feeling is a fact. When you feel like a fraud, your brain presents it as evidence. It feels absolutely true. But feelings are not evidence. They're signals from a threat detection system that was designed for a world that no longer exists. You're not a fraud. You're a human with a brain built for survival on the savannah. And that brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It's just doing it in the wrong century.